Well, hello, everybody. This is Mike Grossman with BioPharm Systems. Welcome, and thank you for joining today. This webinar is really set up to be information sharing about Oracle Clinical Development Analytics and some of its strong business purposes, as well as some technical information as well. In logistics for this webinar, we have quite a few people. So we will be asking if people have questions to enter it into the chat window. And as we have, as we have breaks at various points during the talk, I should be able to go through the questions and then answer as many as time allows. So with that, I think I'll get started. So the name of this talk is leveraging Oracle's Clinical Development Analytics product to help boost productivity and reduce costs. I'm Mike Grossman. As you can see from the slide, I'm responsible for the clinical warehousing and analytics practice at BioPharm Systems, and we are an Oracle partner that works in the health sciences area with Oracle on their products. So I'll just move forward through the slides. First slide, as you might expect, is the agenda. I'm going to go through and explain what Oracle Clinical Development Analytics is, because to kind of level set for everybody. Some of you may have heard of it, some of you may have seen it, others may have just heard of it as some words through the invitation. Then I'm going to go into a section that really focuses on some of the key questions that can be answered that have to do with clinical operations and clinical data management, and how CDA, as it's called, actually can help in understanding your studies. Then we'll go into how do you extend the application. First is new reports, new dashboards. I'm going to go a little bit briefly into the architecture, then talk about extending it beyond what ships with the product. Then we'll have a question and answer session. And we'll have room for questions between pretty much all the bullet points except for the first two, since the first set of slides is pretty brief. But as you think of questions, go ahead and put it in the chat window, and I will try to respond to them as best as I can. And please feel free to do so. So the first section is Clinical Development Analytics. So what is this thing? CDA is a data warehouse and a reporting solution together that supports clinical operations and clinical data management. So it's specifically designed to support the business processes in running a trial. It does so by combining clinical trials management data and EDC or CDMS data, depending if you're dealing with RDC, EDC type systems or paper trials. And it includes not just a data warehouse, but a whole set of prepackaged interactive dashboards and reports. And it's been optimized for understanding the running of trials. I want to know where I am with my trial. I want to know the health of my trial. I want to know how am I doing. This is really the goal of this application, is to deliver that information and give insight into how you're doing on your trials. So let's talk a little bit about what does that mean, pre-built content. Well, on the clinical data management side, there's 26 prepackaged reports. Now, you may or may not have an exact fit to these reports, but Oracle has given a huge boost up by giving you 26 prepackaged reports that cover both the EDC-RDC process as well as the paper-based process. And for those of you that are experienced in this space, you realize those processes have a lot of similarities, but there's also some great differences. Out of the box, the primary data source for doing this kind of clinical data management tracking is the Oracle Clinical System, and in turn, Oracle RDC. Later on, we'll talk about using other similar systems and still taking advantage of CDA, but out of the box, that integration is pre-built. On the CTMS side, which is really a focus around clinical operations, monitors, CRAs, project managers, there's an additional 24 pre-packaged reports, and the out-of-the-box integration comes with Siebel Clinical. Now, those are reports that are pre-configured, and there's dashboards where the reports are collected together, and we're going to be looking at a lot of screenshots and to give you a better flavor for that. But what's really key is the underlying warehouse, the things you can report on. There's 369 pre-built measures, attributes, dimensions, facts. So you can extend this and rearrange the information as you need to. So there's a huge wealth of information. And the key here really is, within the same environment, we've brought together the clinical data management and the clinical operations data. And it actually lets you blend the data between them. So I think that's absolutely critical. So I'm not going to go through these screenshots. There's quite a few in these presentations, just trying to give you a look or feel. I recommend that you go to full screen mode if you actually want to stare at this. But I just wanted to give an idea that the pre-built reports that come with Oracle Clinical Development Analytics are pretty sophisticated, and there's many, many of them. And we're going to be looking at some more of these in detail as we go through this. But there's a tremendous inventory. They've been very professionally formatted. They have full descriptions of what they are. They are modifiable if you set up your security to allow for that. But you have a tremendous variety of reports. And these are just some of the clinical operations reports. Since this is a presentation, I'm not going to list them all out. But they are grouped by topic, and very much enrollment information, randomization information, termination information. We're going to be going through some of those topics and looking at them in more detail. So the next section is about what are the reports. So I'm going to take a little break. I have a few questions, which I think we should have plenty of time to answer at this point in time. So the first is, will this be available for viewing at a later point? So we are recording this conference as well as the web portion of it. So there will be a link available to play back that recording. And we have your registration information, so we will be able to contact you with that. That's the first question. There was another question really that talks about, well, can we bring together information from both Siebel Clinical and Oracle Clinical on the same report? And the answer is definitely yes. That is one of the key that's one of the key features that makes this very powerful. For those of you who know the history of the industry, data management grew up around clinical data management systems based on paper-based process. Clinical operations is responsible for the logistics of running the trial, making sure all the pieces are in the right place at the right time. Those separation between those two departments happened partly because of the computer systems that were built around those processes. As we've moved forward within the industry, that's become more and more of a blend. And the data management team needs to know what clinical operations is doing, and clinical operations needs to know what data management is doing. And in some cases, some organizations have actually combined the departments. But computer systems have made that very difficult to do. The information's been in one or the other. One of the things that CDA brings to the table is now that information can be shared. I can see information about both my data management system, my EDC system, side by side, row by row, same site, same information spread across a single report or dashboard. So that's a critical change to what historically has been available out of the box from off-the-shelf applications. I have another question here that talks about support for Inform. I'm going to hold off on that question if I can until the end when we talk about extending clinical development analytics. So I see the question. I'm just going to hold off on that for right now. So I'm going to move ahead with the next section, and hopefully that should be okay. Now, the intent of this presentation is not that you can read these screens in detail, and if you can, that's great. It's really to discuss the business savings that can be achieved. The concept is Oracle Clinical Development Analytics gives you insight into information at your fingertips so that you don't have to use spreadsheets to pull information together. So you don't have to run separate paper reports and take decisions on that. To see that information at a summary level, and then to be able to drill down to the details where you have open questions. To save time, increase productivity, and to avoid confusions of information coming from multiple systems by generating a single version of the information that's out there. Now, some of the dashboards, such as the study startup overview, just give you a summary. Where am I with my key dates? Where am I with my key enrollment? Has the study been activated? How have my sites been activated? And you can actually go from this summary level, and by clicking on a site or drilling down, you can get much more information. So you can come in and get this overview at a study, a region, which is essentially a group of sites, individual sites. You can even look at summary information that is higher up than at the study level. You may want information for your entire program. If you're a CRO, you may want to see all information for a particular sponsor. So all these ways of slicing and dicing the data, these are called on the technical side, these are the dimensions that you're looking at the data, are available. And that's consistent throughout the application. It's not just in one place or another place. Those dimensions exist for all this information, all these facts, all these attributes. You can see them at the summary level, entire program, entire portfolio for a sponsor. You can see them at the study level. You can see them at the region level. And you can see them at the site level. So, for example, if you're familiar with Siebel Clinical, it has a very similar hierarchy. And to some extent, Oracle Clinical is the same, although there's not a lot of focus in Oracle Clinical for above the study level. Okay. So the first business question, first area is study site startup, or study startup, site startup's a bit more interesting. Where are my sites? Where are my documents? What state are my documents in? Where am I with IRB approval? Where am I with the protocol? Where am I with training? So all of these can be viewed. There's a strong document tracking aspect to this, where we actually can go through these many, many different dimensions and actually look at how is my study being rolled out. Where am I successful? Where are my bottlenecks? So you can get a summary by region, which this graph kind of shows at a very high level, and you can click on a region, and it will drill down to the sites, and you can click on the sites and see really where is a specific site in their setup process. Have they started enrolling? Are they capable of starting enrolling? Have they passed all the regulatory requirements that you need before you can start enrollment, et cetera? So there's a whole section really on this tracking that actually really helps you in study startup. So once you actually get past that initial qualification of the sites and get them up to a status where they can enroll, you obviously have significant enrollment targets. And enrollment really is a leading indicator for the success of the clinical trial. Once again, drill up, drill down, site, region, where is my enrollment, where is my targeted enrollment, how am I doing against my target? So it's not exactly a predictive model that's in here, but it does some simple interpolation that says this is where I should have been by this date, this is where I actually am by this date, how am I performing with my planned enrollment versus my actual enrollment. And this information really is coming from both Oracle Clinical and Siebel Clinical. So there's a whole section on enrollment. I see people are asking questions. That's great. We will have a break in a little bit, and I'll go through them one by one. So keep asking. That's good. So one of the other leading indicators about how well my trial is going to be going is how am I doing with screen failures. If I have way more screen failures than I'm expecting, it's going to have a secondary effect on my ability to enroll. And we may have to actually take a look at some exclusion criteria, may have to take a look at some training issues and some other issues. So there's a whole section that really focuses on this screen failure concept. So looking at the raw numbers for enrollment, that doesn't necessarily tell you why enrollment is slow or why enrollment is going well. But screen failures is yet another leading indicator that you can look at. So between tracking the sites and the sites, how they're starting up, what they're delivering, how's their training going, are there documents in place, and watching the site status, looking at the early indicators on enrollment, and then drilling into screen failures. I don't have any shots here. Randomization, there's a whole other section on how they're randomizing. So if you have that information as well, that can be displayed. The idea is in a single location, you can get a consistent view of how your study and site startup is moving forward. And clearly, getting a successful startup is the first step towards running an efficient trial. Okay, here comes the data. I started enrolling patients, and my assumption really here is that most people are focusing on the ECRF data, and in this case, it's RDC out of the box, and we'll talk about other systems a little bit later. So the first thing is same dimension, same set of studies. From a CDA standpoint, it looks like one large information store. So along with the enrollment information, which you saw maybe on some of those enrollment reports, that information is carried forward. But then there's a whole set of reports about how ECRFs are going. How many have been entered? How many have been source document verified? How many of them are complete? How many of them are locked? How many of them are signed? So you can actually measure with some specific time windows and get alerts for sites that perhaps are a little bit less aggressive in entering their ECRF data than other sites and managing that data. So it really tracks what's there. What you don't see here is there's also a set of paper reports here that correspond to these ECRF reports, which really talk about second date, first pass entry and second pass entry and all that type of stuff. Not quite as meaningful as it was several years ago, but everybody's still doing some paper trials here and there. So those are pre-built reports, and those, more importantly, those measures are available. So you could even build custom reports, which we will be covering. Well, that's great. They're entering the ECRF data, but it's garbage. Or it's great they're entering the ECRF data, but it's fantastic. How do I know what they're entering is of good quality? And that brings us really to the next business question. Is my data clean? What is the quality of my data? So there's a whole set of dashboards that focus on data quality. So the previous ECRF slide talks about data completeness, and this talks about data quality. Now, Oracle have organized these dashboards so that there's kind of a dashboard for data completeness and a dashboard for data quality. Due to the robustness of the warehouse architecture, you actually can create reports that combine all of these things. And it really becomes a readability issue. If you have too much information on a report, it's very hard to use. But you can pick and choose the specific facts and measures and attributes that you want to see and how you want to slice it. But out of the box, they really have these dashboards for, is my data complete? Is my enrollment going? How is my document tracking going? Is my data clean? So I think that gives you an idea of all the key information that's in there. Now, certainly there's other information about the trial, and for those of you familiar with CBIL Clinical itself doesn't track everything about a trial, but certainly that can be added as well. But let's move on to the next step, which is what's going on with early terms. If too many of my subjects are terminating early, in particular if they're terminating and lost to follow-up, that's a warning sign for file closeout. So we certainly have the complete list and the cleanliness. We can see what's being locked. We can see what's being filled out. We can see what's being source document verified, all of that. But these early terminations are actually very critical. For those of you that have worked on, let's say, cardiac trials that have to do with heart attacks, if your endpoint really is a second heart attack and you lose that patient to follow-up, you have to assume basically they've had another heart attack or maybe that they've died, because that's the safe thing to assume. That can actually significantly skew the statistics of the trial. So keeping a handle on these terminations and chasing down the reason why people terminated can really impact whether you're going to be able to complete the trial on time. So there's termination reasons. You can drill up, drill down, site, region, etc. And there are other termination reasons where if you see a pattern at a particular site, a particular area, you may want to go back and do some training, find out why these patients are terminating in one case where in other regions or other sites you don't have issues there. All of this information, all these bits and pieces in question are available in a single set of dashboards. So we're doing fine on time. I've got a few questions here that are listed, and I'm going to go through and try and answer as many of them as I can, so bear with me. I have to scroll up here in this little tiny chat window. Okay. So I have a question here about imaging. So do these reports track imaging in clinical trials, such as the length of the queries? So the length of queries that have been open is definitely tracked. And it's actually designed so that you will put them into buckets. So imagine that you sent a discrepancy or a query out to an investigator and it was sent out yesterday. Does that matter so much? Well, unless it's happening all over the place, probably not. But if that query's been open for 90 days, and there's a lot of queries open for 90 days, that's a pretty serious problem. So the way it's designed is these buckets, kind of 0 to 7 days. Okay, how many open discrepancies do I have there? 7 to 14 days, less than 30 days, greater than 30 days. I don't remember the specific buckets. But you actually can get a set of alerts that are in these time buckets, and those time buckets themselves can be modified. So I think it's quite powerful for managing kind of the openness. I have another question, which, what are the prerequisites for setting up CDA in a company? So I think we'll go through the architecture section. Pure out-of-the-box functionality, zero modification, though, is to have CBIL Clinical and Oracle Clinical and some hardware to run CDA on and some expertise in installing and getting CDA up and running. Now, there are probably very few companies that have such a clean environment, that don't have data coming from other locations, using other applications, wanting to feed data in from other places. But that's the pure out-of-the-box prerequisite. And then when we get to the section on extending CDA, if you'd like to ask further questions about other systems and other approaches, I think that might be the best time for us to dig into a little bit more detail as to what the prerequisites are. I have another question about imaging trials. Is this system compatible with any electronic transport system? So this system is a warehouse, a data warehouse and reporting system. It is not a transactional system. It is not a data capture system. It is very possible to load in information from many other sources beyond Oracle Clinical and Siebel Clinical, and there's a lot of compatibility in the technology there. And we'll be talking about that when we talk about extending CDA beyond the out-of-the-box functionality. There's an additional question. Somebody already has a data repository. And will it complement CDA, or does CDA replace the existing data warehouse? So the architecture, which we'll discuss in a little bit, of CDA allows you to have complementary warehouses sitting side by side beyond CDA. Now, if it's exactly the same information that you're interested in, so exactly the kinds of questions we just went over about enrollment, about page tracking, about document tracking, where there's overlap in terms of that business meaning, there will be overlap between the different warehouses. So I can't really be more specific at this point in time. But the idea is it can coexist with other warehouses, and it can share information with other warehouses and reporting systems. It's not a closed box. Okay, I guess I'll move on. We're about just over halfway done, so that timing is good. So we talked about having 200, 300 facts, dimensions, measures, attributes, and it's very good that Oracle has supplied us with 50-some-odd reports and laid out some beautiful dashboards for us, but what if we want to see the information in a different way? What if our business processes are such that we want it laid out differently? It's good that you have all the measures I'm interested in, but I don't like this column or that column. I want to add columns. I want to change the filters. It's giving me too many choices. I want to lock down some of those choices when I deliver it to my end users. They can just have limited things that they can pick. So there's a part of this application. This is built on the Oracle Business Intelligence Enterprise Edition from a reporting standpoint, and it's called Answers. And what Answers does is it gives you access to the logical warehouse, the underlying facts and dimensions, which are listed out in business terms. It lets you build your own reports, and it lets you build them quickly and with no programming. So to extend this, it can be with any computer-savvy and business-savvy end user. Now, that's still a restriction. They have to understand the concept that they have to click with the mouse and go through and pick things off a list. But it's all done graphically, and no real programming is required. So what you can do is, as you come into Answers, over on the left is your data dictionary. It's all the things that you have. So you have studies, you'll have sites, you'll have regions. Then you'll have all these things about discrepancies, all these facts about document tracking, all these facts about page tracking, termination, all these business questions, these business areas you're going to have information about. And what you do is you actually start expanding the parts you're interested in and clicking. And in this case, this person said they want study site, and I can't read it because it's really tiny on my screen. I don't have the full screen. But basically, they picked columns. And you can go between the folders and pick the different columns, and you don't have to worry about joins. The data model is set up in such a way, using something called dimensional modeling and star schemas. It's not important if you're not familiar with those terms. That allows you to pick and choose, and it will automatically generate the legal combinations of data. So you don't have to worry about, oh, What if I want to join my Oracle clinical and Siebel clinical data? What if I want to get counts of documents for a site and put that next to a number of open discrepancies for a site? It will automatically figure out that the sites are the same and put the data side by side for you. So that's an extremely powerful feature. Now, there's no way that Oracle could know all the different ways that you wanted to see this information. They've sent these examples to get you started for the most common types of questions. Now, the clinical development analytics was developed by Oracle via a consortium, so they have some strong business input into what the most common elements are and the common reports are. But every organization is different. So you do need to take this and build your own reports. So you literally just pick the fields you want, pick some filters, click on the Results tab, see if you like it, go back and forth, pick more, put in some filters, put in some sorts, come up with criteria, and then you save it. Now that's saved under that individual's area. They then can take that essentially rectangle of the report and just drop it into a dashboard, and they can save the dashboard. So they can have many interrelated reports sitting on a common page. And I showed you some dashboards earlier. That then can be published to a user community. Now, there's security around this, so people aren't just randomly publishing things. But people who have access to answers can take advantage of these 300 and some odd data points and actually build answers to their own questions. They can do it as a one-off for a study, or they can build it generically. It's not really a power user. It's a little bit lighter than that. It's someone that's reasonably well versed with using computers. And certainly if you can use Siebel Clinical, you should be able to do this. You can get graphical versions of the same types of reports. So once you get your table done, kind of that's usually where you start. You stare at the table and say, now I'm interested in getting a graphical view of that. There's a huge variety of graphics that you can apply to it. And you can save those just like you can save the text reports. So it really is an end-user empowerment in terms of getting these reports. Again, Oracle gave you a nice seed group of reports, and those can all be expanded to a wider group of reports. One of the other areas that frequently comes up here is security. So to pick from a list of studies and pick from a list of sites and get these dashboards is great. But what if I don't want everyone to have access to all the studies and sites? So you can carry forward the study site security model from Oracle Clinical. And if you've already set that up for RDC and you have the same kind of user groups and group names of the users, you actually can bring that forward automatically. And that's kind of out of the box. But let's suppose you have a completely different system. It is also possible, if you have that who belongs to which site and who belongs to which study information somewhere else, the system can be, with a minor extension, again, fully supported, can then take that information. And then the studies and sites, regions, et cetera, that people can choose from are restricted to those areas. This can be very powerful, especially if you're a CRO and you want to work with clients, or if you just are setting up your organization, you have very large organizations, and you really don't need everybody to have access to everything. So I really haven't emphasized that feature here. I don't have a screenshot of someone not seeing the data, but I think it's an important factor. So we're coming up to the next section, which is actually to talk about the architecture. So if anyone has a question at this point, this area on building reports didn't really get any questions, but I'll just move ahead, and if someone throws up a question about building reports, I'll certainly be happy to answer it. So the next section is about architecture. This is not a technical presentation, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on architecture, but just kind of show some of the underlying infrastructure that makes this work. So this is a slide. This is a standard slide from Oracle. On the bottom layer, you have your sources. And what we're actually showing here is the complete out-of-the-box functionality. no extensions, out of the box. And what happens is it's pre-built to be integrated with Oracle Clinical and Siebel Clinical. That data is then staged up against some staging tables. It is transformed, actually several times, into these stars and dimensions that allow you to pick and choose and join so the end user isn't really troubled by how everything fits together. And then the reporting tool that sits on top of it, Oracle Business Intelligence Enterprise Edition, is layered on top of these stars. So we're going to look a little bit more into some of these boxes. If you actually look at the green box, where all the number crunching and data manipulation is occurring, that is inside a database. It's inside an Oracle 11G database, Release 2, and it's actually inside a framework application that comes from Oracle called the Oracle Life Sciences Data Hub. Now, if you should choose to purchase CDA, you don't have to buy Oracle Life Sciences Data Hub. It's the framework in which it is built. And we'll talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. The advantage of this over a regular database is Oracle Life Sciences Data Hub is focused on regulatory compliance. So they've designed the CDA application so that if you want to change anything in it, you can do so in a regulatory compliant way. It will keep track of all your changes. It can have audit trails. It can handle snapshots as they existed at a point in time. It can keep all your changes under version control. There's a number of other features. This is not really a discussion about Life Sciences Data Hub. But they've given you a framework here that allows you to make changes and helps you with regulatory compliance. The actual transformational tool that's doing all the data manipulation is a tool called Informatica. That is an extract, transform, and load tool. It is the market leader in that space. It is not an Oracle product. But that's all that happens within the Life Sciences Data Hub, and that's presented up to Oracle Business Intelligence Enterprise Edition, or OBIEE for short. And this is where we've seen the screenshots. So nobody has to know what's going on in the database. They can come in from the outside. They come in from the web. They can start browsing. They can schedule reports to run. They can set up alerts. It can automatically export to Office, things like Excel, PowerPoints. For people that are extra slick, they can set up to work against the iPhone. I don't know that I haven't encountered anyone that's done that outside of Oracle, but it sounds really cool for that remote work. So the basic architecture is you got your sources. You convert that into the data warehouse structures. First step is to make it a source-dependent transformation. The second step is to then transform it that's source-independent to these reporting stars. So it's a fairly large, complex data model. And for you to build such a data model would take a lot of time, a lot of discussion. A team of technical people would be discussing this for months, and in some cases, we've even seen for years. So Oracle has supplied you with this data model and the transformational tool to work with it. You can extend it, you can change it, but hopefully they've cut that duration down significantly to introduce some significant cost savings. I have one more architecture slide, and then we can go back to questions. So let's talk a little bit about this regulatory compliant architecture. In fact, what does it give you? It gives you a runtime environment that looks forward-looking a little bit beyond just study metrics reporting and clinical operations reporting. It actually is a framework that in the future, as new versions of CDA come out, or if you decide just to work with that environment yourself, independent of CDA, that lets you expand to many other data sources. So following that same design pattern of staging and then creating source-independent versions of the data and then building it out into warehouses, that same architecture we recommend as a best practice for handling central lab data, for handling patient subject data, outcomes data, healthcare data, safety data, AVs, complaints. That common umbrella of an IT infrastructure and how to report that information out and deliver it to the wider community has been built into CDA and CDA's architecture. Now, they're not shipping at Oracle all these different functions and features. And very often, most companies have such a diversity of data sources, it's not something that's easy to do as a shrink-wrapped application. But they've included a framework in the Life Sciences Data Hub that lets you build out this future vision about how do I get a common view across all my information without making infrastructure reinvestments for each project and for each request. It gives you a regulatory compliant environment that handles blinding, security, snapshots, version control, validation, traceability. So no matter what kind of data you're dealing with, this infrastructure handles that kind of data in a secure and compliant manner. And CDA has actually been built on this architecture. It's very powerful. You may not take advantage of these features. You don't pay extra for them, but they're in there if you need to extend your environment. Okay, so I think we're up to the next part, just looking at the time here. We have 15 minutes left, so we're doing pretty well. Let's answer some questions. I'm going to scroll up a bit. Okay. One person says they'll be using a different reporting tool than OBIEE, Cognos, Business Object, Spotfire. I'm going to talk about that in the next couple slides, but what level of support will there be for other reporting tools? So when you buy CDA from Oracle, you buy the data model, you buy the infrastructure, so the underlying Life Sciences Data Hub, you buy the transformation tools, I mean not the tools themselves, but the transformation programs that are smart and know how to take the data out of Oracle Clinical, Siebel Clinical, and how to flip it around and turn it on its head and get it ready for reporting. And you also buy a bunch of pre-shrunk reports and dashboards that connects through that. Now, if you decide you don't want to use OBIEE, those pre-built reports won't work on business objects or Cognos or Spotfire or whatever you want. But you still get all the other functionality. So if you decided you wanted to layer Cognos on top of the Life Sciences Data Hub as a piece of infrastructure, you would have to work with, I can't remember if it's IBM or SAP, I get confused who bought what. Make sure that connector works, sort of a lightweight connector, and so some of those are already out on the market. And then you would have to build your own reports. But you'd still have the data model, you still have the transform logic, you still have all of that. So that is fully supported. If you called up Oracle and said you didn't like the way your report looked, and you said, well, what report? And you said, well, it's my business objects report, they're not going to be able to help you. But if you said my extract, transform, and load job is failing, and I have CDA, that has absolutely nothing to do with your whether you use Cognos or OBIEE. So as long as you don't alter what they've shipped, the part that you've left unaltered is supported by Oracle. I hope that answers that question. I have another question that says, I don't have sound, so it's going to be hard for them to hear my answer, but will this presentation be available online later? Okay. So I'll ask our other presenter to answer that question via chat. I don't want to chat while I'm talking. I have another question about what about the version of OC? My understanding is this works with OC 4.5.3 and OC 4.6, but I think we probably need official confirmation from someone from Oracle on that one. So if there's anyone that's authorized from Oracle, to please chat the answer to that question. But I believe it's 4.5.3 and 4.6. I have another question. Talked about validation and blinding. Can you explain a little bit further? Yes. So within that infrastructure, if you remember on that middle layer, that's the Life Sciences Data Hub. And every bit of transformation code is under version control. Every time you run any of that transformation code, you load the data, transform it, et cetera, that is all tracked. Not only that, there's enough intelligence that it knows I staged the data from Oracle Clinical on this date, then the next date I moved it to the next step, next date I moved it to the next step, next date I moved it to the next step. With the Life Sciences Data Hub, if you want to make a change to that, you create a development container as a copy of production. You check out local copy of the code, make your changes there, test it there. You can move that to a QC area, and only at the end of when you follow your SOPs, apply it to production. So you haven't destroyed anything that's been sent by Oracle. That's all under version control. It's all locked down. And certainly that's something BioPharm can help you with. But the idea is that all that version control, all the tracking, all the moving from development to QC to production to retired is tracked. It's all secured and locked down. So if you have a validation life cycle that you want to apply to the changes, the underlying architecture actually assists you in achieving that validation life cycle. And it's not done manually. It's not done between different nodes of CDA. It all happens in that one live version of CDA, and it can be deployed in a very controlled and traced way. So if anybody has a question about how things existed at a point in time, either code or data, it is possible to set it up to track that. And there are validation statuses assigned to the various different objects, and you can set your validation cycle up to work within that framework. Okay. We have had confirmation from some names at Oracle that, in fact, CDA works with OC 453 and 4.6, so that's great, and Siebel Clinical 8.x. We had a question about the pricing. And unfortunately, I don't really feel at liberty, since I do not work for Oracle, to announce the price. So I think we'd be happy to work with you on business justification in detail on a kind of a one-on-one basis. But I can't just announce the price over a web conference for a company I don't even work for. I'm sure Oracle would love to give you a price. Okay. So with that, we have about just under 10 minutes. I'll move into the last section. Only 2 or 3 more slides. So this has to do with extending clinical development analytics. So one of the advantages I talked about of clinical development analytics is Oracle's done all this work. They built these reports. They set up the data model. They wrote the transformations. They've done the integration. They defined the business rules. That's fantastic. If you had to do the same thing yourself, the cost of the project would be significantly more. But in doing so, Oracle has to make some assumptions. They have to assume how your business process is. They have to assume what source systems you're using. They have to assume what measures you're interested in showing, what insight you want to get. And they've done that through a consortium, and they've got a user community, and it's pretty sophisticated. But it may not be a perfect match. So they get you 80% of the way there, 50% of the way there, some percentage of the way there, but they may not get you 100% of the way there. So there may be a desire to extend what's already there beyond just creating new reports. So what are the types of questions that people ask? So can I add to the dimensions and facts and attributes and measures? You can. So they've given you 300 and something that are sitting inside the warehouse, but maybe you have some financial invoicing information that you want, or some kit tracking information that you want that just isn't in the data model. Using the technique that I described when I was discussing validation, you can check things out and extend them, create new objects, basically modify the data model. Now, this is something you need some level of expertise to do. You can't just randomly do this. But it's all within the purview of the application of the Life Sciences Data Hub, which is the underlying architecture of clinical development analytics. So if it's coming from Oracle Clinical and there's just something that didn't come through that you want, That's great. You can bring it through. Same thing with Siebel Clinical. Maybe they've done some things with kit tracking or something like that, and you want to add it. Or maybe you've got some custom flex fields, and you want to bring those across. Do I have to use Oracle Clinical and Siebel Clinical? What if I just want the data management piece, or what if I just want the clinical trials management piece? So you can easily shut off one or two of the feeds and then make a few adjustments, again, all under a validatable, traceable combination of activities that'll actually let you single feed the data. And that's something there's even instructions for in the documentation itself. We had the question earlier about, I have another data warehouse. Does this collide with that? So there is a number of architectures that at BioPharm we've explored that has to do with supplementing the data in this warehouse with data from another warehouse. And the reciprocal could also be true, although I can't say much about the other warehouse. So if you're using Oracle's Business Analytics warehouse, it has like for the CRM, the Siebel CRM stuff, or some other Oracle applications. Or maybe you have an SAP warehouse that has all your financial invoice information. Or maybe you use Salesforce.com and you have information there about opportunities and things like that. That data can vary. Those extra sources can easily be added in. I think the real tough question is, well, now I've got the raw data in. How do I now transform it to something that's meaningful, that's easily reportable, and merged in with the other data? So getting the data in isn't the problem. Making sure you have a solid data model does require some expertise on how to build high-performing data models. If you have experience building data warehouses, it's exactly that skill. It's not a special skill. And then there's some specific skills about how to use the environment. But the hard part is building the good data model and designing that good data model. What if I like Siebel Clinical and Oracle Clinical, but I don't get all my data from there? What if I'm getting flat files? What if I'm getting data from a feed from a CRO? What if I'm a CRO and I'm getting data feeds from a sponsor? What if I'm getting metrics data coming from my IVRS system and I want my IVRS system to come in here? Well, again, just like you can supplement from another warehouse, you can supplement with flat files. You can supplement with SAS data sets. Any other Oracle application, you can bring data in an automated fashion so that you're not restricted to say, I can only do this reporting for my in-house studies. You could load up your CRO data, and if it's a proper structure, a consistent structure, you can actually see these same dashboards for your CRO data as it's coming in. Similarly, if you're a CRO, you can slice and dice it by sponsor. What if you have other clinical content, such as subject data? In this case, you're really extending beyond CDA and really digging into the Life Sciences Data Hub, but it's all possible. What if one of the components, I wanted all these reports and dashboards, but I don't have some of these systems. I've got homegrown systems. I'm using Inform. I'm using Rave. So out of the box right now, it's just Siebel Clinical and Oracle Clinical. We had a question about that. But you can certainly extend it to work with Rave and Inform. And if you really want it to work with Inform, you also want to lean on Oracle to see if they could help you with that. But certainly technically it's feasible. And then what if we wanted to supplement tools such as Spotfire, Business Objects, and hopefully I've already answered that question. And just very conscious of the time, this is just a screenshot of extending a small extension where you can see all the analytic stuff inside Siebel Clinical, even though it's from this application. And last, a bit of salesmanship on my part. BioPharm is a partner of Oracle, gold partner, and we're very familiar with these applications. I've actually, prior to BioPharm, spent 10 years at Oracle working on these applications. We do business case development, cost analysis. We manage requirements, design. We know about best practices. We do installation, configuration. We have done quite a lot of work around proofs of concepts and pilots so that people can actually verify that this is what they're really interested in. Hosting, full implementations, validation, training, and even building out these extensions. So we really have the full gamut of capabilities, and we work as a partner with Oracle, and we're very close with the Oracle team, a bunch of really good people. So with that, we're in the final section here, and I've answered a lot of questions as I've gone along. But we're at the end, and I've got my contact, or the contact information. It's not mine. You can certainly get this contact information. And we will definitely have this recorded if you need to share this with some people. And let's see. I have time for one or two questions here before the end. Looks like there's one question about validation and blinding. Can I explain further? Okay. So two things. I don't normally identify who's chatting, but I did have a comment from someone from Oracle, and they said it was a really good value. So that's fine. But I had another to further look at blinding. So I didn't really talk about blinding as much. Now, data blinding is probably not as relevant for these types of dashboard reports as they are for subject data. And this is a core piece of functionality in the underlying architecture, the Life Sciences Data Hub, that lets you mask portions of data where only very limited groups of people have access to the real data, and the wider community sees what we call dummy data, or blinded data, as it's called in some cases. This is more common with subject data or with hospital records that you would do this. For example, if you had pharmacokinetic data and you wanted to clean that data against your CRFs, you can do so and mask off the blood concentrations and do that cleaning real time with the rest of the study data collection. But then when someone's running an interim analysis, they have to run special blind breaks, and in a secure fashion, that safety data monitoring board or that special statistician can actually get to the real data, and still it remains blinded to everybody else. And then at the end of the trial, you can do the general unblinding. So that's quite a sophisticated part of the system. It doesn't just apply to treatment codes. It's any kind of sensitive data, pharmacokinetic, pharmacodynamic data, anonymized data, et cetera. And that's really the Life Sciences Data Hub, the underlying architecture that goes with. So I'm actually in a conference room, and I think we're right at the end of the teleconference. So I hope I was able to answer most people's questions. I'm going to wrap it up for now. And I wanted to thank you all very much. And please do reach out and get this contact information. And we'd be happy to help you do evaluation, to look at the product. We'll work with Oracle to help you get demos set up and see if this is of any interest to you. So thanks so much.